The Genovese crime family is an Italian-American mafia criminal family affiliated with the American Mafia and is one of the 5 families that control organized crime. Because of several family bosses, they have been able to prevent criminal activities in New York City and New Jersey. Stay tuned for the top 5 Genovese crime family bosses in history. 5. Vincent Shin Gigante. From 1981 through 2005, Vincent Louis Gigante, better known as the Chin, was the head of the Genovese crime family in New York City. Gigante began his career as a professional boxer, competing in 25 contests between 1944 and 1947. He started his career as a mafia enforcer for the Luciano criminal family, the predecessor of the Genovese organization. Gigante was one of 5 brothers, 3 of whom joined the mafia with him: Mario, Pasquale, and Ralph. Only one brother, Louis, remained out of the criminal family, becoming a priest. In 1957, for instance, Gigante was the gunman in the unsuccessful assassination attempt on longtime Luciano boss, Frank Costello. He was condemned to 7 years in jail for cocaine trafficking in 1959. Gigante ascended to prominence fast throughout the 1960s and 1970s. By 1981, he had risen to the position of family leader. In 1986, he also ordered the failed assassination of Gambino crime family chief John Gotti. Gigante was acknowledged as the most powerful crime boss in the United States after the arrest and conviction of Gotti and numerous Gambino family members in 1992. For over 30 years, Gigante pretended to be insane to keep police enforcement at bay. In a somewhat expected turn of events, VITO Genovese was another boss of the Genovese family, as his name depicts. Coming up shortly is all the details about this mafia. The media dubbed Gigante the Godfather and the Enigma in the bathrobe, and he frequently strolled the streets of Greenwich Village in his bathrobe and slippers, talking incoherently to himself. In 1990, he was charged with federal racketeering but found mentally ill to stand trial. He was convicted of racketeering and conspiracy in 1997 and sentenced to 12 years in jail. When he was charged with obstruction of justice in 2003, he pled guilty and stated that his alleged insanity was a ruse to escape prosecution, and he was sentenced to an additional 3 years in jail. On December 19, 2005, he died while detained at the United States Medical Center for Federal Prisoners. 4. Frank the Prime Minister Costello. Prime Minister Frank Costello was the Luciano criminal family's Italian-American mob leader, according to a Genovese family documentary. Costello escaped an assassination attempt orchestrated by VITO Genovese and by Vincent Gigante in 1957. The confrontation convinced Costello to hand over control to Genovese and retire. Costello passed away on February 18, 1973. Just so you know, Costello was still known as the Prime Minister of the Underworld when he retired. He retained power and influence in New York's mafia and kept busy in his later years. Old colleagues like Gambino and Lucchese continued to pay Costello visits at his Waldorf Astoria apartment, seeking counsel on critical mafia matters. Costello spent his time gardening and exhibiting his flowers at local horticultural events. 3. VITO Genovese.
VITO?
VITO Genovese was an American mobster of Italian descent who primarily operated in the United States. During Prohibition, VITO Genovese came to power as an enforcer in the American Mafia. VITO Genovese, a longtime acquaintance and boyhood friend of Lucky Luciano, took part in the Castellamarese War and influenced the formation of the Mafia and organized crime in the United States. A slice of bread stole a lot of money from the Sandwich Mafia, so they set his house on fire as he slept. He's toast now. Later, he would command Luciano's criminal family, the Genovese crime family, after him. Later in the video, we'll tell you about the old fox. Peter Morello was a notorious criminal lord for his one-fingered malformation of the right hand. VITO Genovese, together with Luciano, aided in the internationalization of the heroin trade. He escaped to Italy in 1937 and returned briefly during World War II. In 1945, he returned to the United States. VITO Genovese had been a mentor to Vincent Chin Gigante, the eventual Genovese crime family head. Subscribe to the channel if you are learning about exciting things that have happened decades past or are still happening. 2. Charles Lucky Luciano. Time magazine named Luciano the criminal genius among the top 20 most significant builders and giants of the 20th century in 1998. After abolishing the boss of bosses title held by Salvatore Maranzano during the Castellammare War in 1931, Luciano is regarded as the founder of contemporary organized crime in the United States. According to the Genovese family documentary, he was the modern Genovese crime family's first formal boss. Luciano was prosecuted and convicted of forced prostitution and leading a prostitution ring in 1936, and he was condemned to 30 to 50 years in prison. Still, during World War II, he established an agreement with the Department of the Navy through his Jewish mob partner, Meir Lansky, to supply naval information. In 1946, his sentence was mitigated on the condition that he be deported to Italy for suspected wartime assistance. Luciano died in Italy on January 26, 1962, and his remains were allowed to be returned to the United States for burial. 1. Giuseppe the Clutch Hand Morello. The Clutch Hand, Giuseppe Morello, commonly known as the Old Fox, was the Morello crime family's initial leader and subsequently a prominent advisor to Giuseppe, Joe the Boss Masseria. His Castellammare adversaries recognized him as Peter Morello. He was noted for having a claw-like one-fingered malformed right hand. In the Genovese family documentary, Giuseppe formed the 107th Street Mob in the 1890s, which evolved into the Morello criminal family. The Morello criminal family is now known as the Genovese crime family and is the oldest of New York City's 5 families. During the Castellammare War, which lasted from 1930 to 1931, Masseria and Morello battled against a rival gang commanded by Salvatore Maranzano and Joseph Bonanno in Brooklyn. Morello, a seasoned assassin, was appointed as Masseria's war chief and strategic consultant.
Unbelievable. This is unbelievable.
Giuseppe Morello was murdered in the Castellammare War on August 15, 1930, while collecting cash payments at his East Harlem business. Morello's killer was identified as a Castellammare shooter known as Buster from Chicago by Joseph Valachi, the first man in the American Mafia to turn state's evidence. We are indebted to you for taking some of your time to explain another enigma to us, and we thank you very much for doing so. Suppose you watch the film Brief History about the Genovese family in 5 minutes. In that case, you will be given knowledge regarding one of the most powerful organized crime families in the annals of Italian history. They were responsible for several horrible atrocities committed in New York and throughout the United States. It is highly recommended that you look into it. We look forward to seeing you again shortly.